Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Rose Beaumont from Mastercard, and I have the very great pleasure of welcoming you all to this very special occasion where we invite you to join us in looking at life through a different lens. Mastercard has been a proud sponsor and supporter of the Festival du Cannes for the last 3 years. And in this time, we've looked at what it really takes to make great cinema, great film that will inspire all of you and generations to come. This year, we're evolving. We're becoming not just the proud partner of the Festival du Cannes, but also the proud partner of cinematic magic, the proud partner of imagination, and the proud partner of the next generation of film talent. We've got some great guests joining us and some great guests in the room in the form of Vikas Khanna, Alex Sparrow, and Zara Balfour. But now I'd like to hand over to Laurent to invite our special guests to join us.
Hello, everybody. It's a great pleasure and a great honor for me to be with you today here in Cannes for this masterclass for Mastercard. It's not easy to say. Believe me, masterclass for Mastercard. So I prefer to say discussion with three great talents, believe me. First of all, I would like to welcome a great actress. She won here a prize for Map to the Star, directed by David Cronenberg. She won on the score, of course. Still Alice. She works with the many great directors. She made many great movies like Shortcuts, directed by Robert Altman, or Boogie Nights, Paul Thomas Anderson. She accepts to do blockbusters sometimes, like Jurassic Park, Hunger Games, or Kingsman. Please welcome Julianne Moore. Hello, Julianne. Please have a seat. Our second guest is a great director, came from Germany. In fact, he came from LA yesterday, so a little bit jet lag. And before that, he was in Munich, so it's a little bit jet lag. But he's a great director. He started a long time ago. He directs feature movie, he directs short movies, documentaries. He directs also an opera. He directs Fitzcarraldo. It's my really, and Aguirre. It's my two favorite movies. Please welcome the German director, Werner Herzog. Hello, Werner. Third one, born in Cannes, in fact. He's a young, very talented director. I Killed My Mother, Lawrence Anyways. He won the prize here for Mummy, for Juste la fin du monde, just the end of the world. I think it was an English title. And he has a movie in competition this year. Matthias and Maxime, sorry. Please welcome Xavier Dolan. Hello, Xavier. Thank you very much to be with us today. Please take your mic. First question for Julianne. Julianne, do you remember how you imagined your life before to become an actress? And why did you decide to become an actress?
Well, it's funny because I wasn't exposed to acting much growing up. It was just something I literally did as an after-school thing. It was because I couldn't do sports, so I went out for the play, that kind of thing. And I don't think that I came to acting ever from a performative place. I like to read. I really like to read. That was my favorite thing to do, to go to the library and check out a lot of books and read them. And so I like the feeling of being like in the middle of a story. And I found when I started acting, that's what it felt like, that I was inside in a book. And I don't think I realized, maybe the most, when I was 10 years old, we lived in Alaska for a year, and I would go to the movie theater every week because I was allowed to go by myself. My sister and I could take the bus and we could go. And there was a person there, whoever was programming the films was really extraordinary, because you might go and see a Disney film like Aristocats, but then I remember once I saw Minnie and Moskowitz when I was 10, a Cassavetes film. I saw A Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich. We saw all of this stuff. And so I think my cinematic tastes were being shaped long before my acting tastes were being shaped. So oddly, I had this dual thing where I was feeling very immersed in books and literature, and then seeing some very outside things cinematically. But I thought I was going to be a doctor.
Werner, do you remember? Because you're born in Germany, in a little village. We have no theater in this village. At home, you have no television, no phone. You imagine now, I mean...
No running water.
So, why and how you decide to become a director?
That's not so easy to say because until I was 11, I hadn't seen cinema and I didn't even know it existed. And for example, I didn't know what a telephone was until fairly late, and I made my first phone call when I was 17, but I made my first film at age 19. And since nobody wanted to produce the films that I had proposed and that I had in mind, I earned the money for my first 35 millimeter celluloid films, working the night shift as a welder in a steel factory. During the day I was in school. But otherwise I always had the feeling I was the inventor of cinema. In a way it sounds preposterous, but until today I have the feeling I'm still inventing what cinema is. And no direct guidance into it, no film school. I'm always been self-taught, which is quite all right. And so I'm still, in a way, inventing what I'm doing.
So definitely the cinema has changed your life.
No, I mean, originally I wanted to be an athlete, ski jumping. But that career was cut short when my best friend, when I was just 16, had a near fatal accident. And it was so terrifying that I never dared to be even close to one of these ramps where you take off and fly.
You have not really the same background, Xavier. I mean, for a lot of people like me, you're born in Cannes and you're born with the cinema. I mean, do you remember your first desire to direct?
I don't know when I started to desire a career in filmmaking, whether as an actor or filmmaker, but my bringing in film was very broad, very commercial. I would just watch kids' movies, and then I dropped out of school, and there was this story that I desperately wanted to tell. I had first been an actor for years, and I remember being very frustrated by the fact that after having, being a child actor, people would no longer hire me, and I felt like a has-been, and I had only 16 years old. But that's what you go through when you're a child actor, and then no one calls you anymore, or say that you are too, short or tall or young or old. You never fit. And then I thought, I'm going to write this story. I killed my mother, and and I wrote it, and yeah.
Whoops.
Entirely normal. It'll be called I Killed My Mother. But so I wrote that script and thought, if I direct it, then no one's going to tell me you're not right for the part. And it was autobiographical. It was very close to home, and I had it under my skin. And so that's how I came about directing, and then one thing led to another, and but I remember, arriving on set and not really knowing what to do with my hands and not knowing where to put the camera, and then things came naturally, but and I had never done any shorts. I had never really seen any great films, a little bit. I've had a very late education in what's to see and what's to not to see. I don't want to say not to see, but sometimes you meet people and they say, "Have you seen this or this?" And you have to see that film, and then you're like, "Oh, it's okay." And then your background is X-Men, which is a great franchise. But and then you start being a little bit curious about what film is. But to this day, still, there are so many films that I haven't seen, because what I've done in my 20s instead of watching films is making mine. So that's how it started.
But it is very interesting. I mean, when you're beginning, it was like work in progress when you direct a movie, because you learn a lot of things during the shooting.
What? Sorry.
Yeah, when you start and direct a movie, it was like a work in progress for you. I mean, yeah.
And a sort of constant, continuous canvas of trying to ameliorate yourself and only learning by making mistakes. That's the only way, really, that that I ever that by watching my films at a premiere with people and then thinking, what have I done for this or that? And there are always things you want to change, but I didn't really want to go back to school after making my first film. All I wanted to do is make another one. And so my entire 20s, it's basically been about understanding what mistakes I had made and trying to be better.
Julianne, like I said, you made many movies, very different, in fact. When you accept to do a movie like Still Alice, you won an Oscar for this movie. It changed your point of view about the disease, and you think it changed the point of view of the audience regarding the Alzheimer's disease?
That's never why I choose a film. I always choose something because I respond to the material in some way, viscerally, emotionally. I think, though, and I was talking about this earlier, the great thing about film is that it does. We go to the movies to see ourselves, in a sense. You go as an audience member, you come and you project your own experience, the same way that I did when I was a kid and I was reading, and it was this kind of close identification. You project your own identity onto a protagonist or an antagonist or something, and so oddly you begin to feel associated with something personally that is not a you, it's a they. So there's this kind of wonderful transference that happens. So that's what we, for us to, when we finally enter into a film that way, as an actor and then an audience member, there's this really wonderful communication that happens, and therefore, hopefully, some kind of understanding. The very first time that I really felt that I understood, where I saw a directorial gaze when I saw someone's vision, and I was like. Because I think before I literally had gone movies just as an audience member, and I was like, oh, I feel this, I feel that. But suddenly, when I was in college, it used to be when in the States in the early '80s there were revival houses and stuff all over cities. I was living in Boston, and I went to see Robert Altman's Three Women, and I had gone through the same kind of thing. As a teenager, I just saw whatever was around. I didn't think about it. So I'd missed Nashville and all of those big movies, and I saw Three Women, and I was like, what? Who's that? What kind of acting is that? Who's that guy? I was like, I want to work with that guy. Suddenly it's like this thing. I saw someone very deliberately telling me a story. And later on when I worked with Bob, I was like, where did that come from? And he said, that was a dream I had. So I'm like, wow, you dreamed Three Women. And that kind of woke me up and I realized that I could not just have that kind of identification with something, that I could then have a relationship with the director where I was sharing their vision, and then we were together communicating that and forcing that identification with an audience. So back to Still Alice, yes, hopefully it enforces some kind of understanding.
You want to say something, Xavier?
No, just that. Are you talking about shortcuts, right?
No. I was talking about Three Women when I saw it. When I work with him. Yeah.
Because my one of my stepmothers that was a little bit more artistic when I was talking about someone who tells you got to see this or that. Shortcuts was one of those movies where you realize something completely different can exist outside of what you've seen your entire life. But that's it. That's all I want.
Well, but what's kind of cool about that is that you're saying, I love that idea that somebody comes up to you and says, you've got to say this. So not only, it's this weird kind of circle. So it's like, I know as a viewer that I can have this identification with something, and then I learned as an actor that I could then have this identification with a director who then communicates it to the audience. But then there's that other part of the circle, which is then someone else who's seen something who says, let me invite you into my experience. So it's always this kind of wonderful, human experience.
Werner, as a director, is it easier for you now to direct a movie with a new technology? I mean, with the digital or something like that, or not really?
Well, I'm a man of celluloid because I grew up with celluloid movies when digital didn't exist. And I still approach filmmaking as if it were celluloid, although I know digitally filming is much faster, much less expensive. You can edit on your laptop and so. But knowing in my early days that every second counted, that's why I started to do my own slate very quickly and immediately starting, because every second of celluloid would cost something like $5, raw stock, laboratory, and on and on. And today I'm still in this attitude. I'm not running my camera hours and hours and hoping that somehow I will capture something extraordinary. You never catch anything extraordinary. And I keep telling my cinematographer, switch that camera off now. Yeah, but we shouldn't we collect some more material? I said to him, we are not garbage collectors. We are into the business of filmmaking. We are film directors. And so for the feature film that is showing here at the festival, Family Romance LLC, I shot a little more than 300 minutes, all grand total of footage, not 300 hours, I mean minutes, and that's it. And I knew exactly what I was going to shoot and how I would shoot it, because I was my own cinematographer. And but the approach is as if I had celluloid and it was valuable. The moment was essential and valuable, and do only the essential, that what you want to see on the screen. And I remember when I did Bad Lieutenant, everybody in the American crew was nervous. I finished shooting day at 3:30 in the afternoon. Next day, even earlier. And I have never in my entire life had 1 hour of overtime. And I heard always, we haven't shot coverage, and I didn't even know what it was. I had to ask my assistant director secretly, what do they mean? I know what coverage is in my car insurance. If you are riding with me and I run into a brick wall and you are injured, you are covered up to $250,000 bodily injury or so. So and he told me there has to be a close up like this on the eyes, and then a wide shot and circling, and I said I don't need it for the screen. And then on the third day, when they really became very nervous, Nicolas Cage asked for an apple box, and he stepped up and he says, "Crew, approach." And he steps up and he says, only one thing, we didn't shoot coverage today. Finally, I'm working with a director who knows what he's doing. So, and by the way, I'm very impressed about your origins as somebody who reads. And that's what I tell young filmmakers. You have to read. Read. If you don't do it, you will be a filmmaker, but a mediocre at best. All the real, very, very fine filmmakers that I know read.
Why is it important for you? I mean, read.
Everybody who is really good in filmmaking reads. We have Terrence Malick here, for example, in the competition. He has a whole library. He reads. Errol Morris, who does documentaries mostly, he reads. Everyone that's of significance that I know is reading.
Xavier, you read? You have to say yes, my friend.
Yes, of course. Do I need to elaborate on what I read? It make me very nervous.
Yeah,
but I do read.
But
yes,
you do read beyond tweets.
I try to read. I try to watch films. Sometimes it's a challenge because I work so much, but I realize also that if you don't have time in your life for the curiosity of other people's work, then you miss out on other people's gaze on what they think life or world is. So, of course.
Right, and someone just asked me a question too about what they said. Is it difficult? What's difficult about working with filmmakers? And I said, actually, when you work with an auteur, when you work with a great director, it's very easy. It's very, very easy because as an actor, you need scaffolding, and so some
precision.
Yeah,
in language.
Exactly. So someone who's very, very literate and is precise in their language is able to give you that in the screenplay, which is not, by the way, a blueprint. Whenever anybody says that, I'm like, oh no. It's like you need the script. script. It's like you need the language, right? And then they're able to tell the story linguistically, and they're also able to tell the story visually or cinematically. And so for an actor, I communicate then with the director, and I'm able to read it, and I can see the frame, and then I'm able to really understand whether they speak to me or not. If they would like to speak to me, that's great. But I should be able to understand what they're communicating in the language and in the frame. And then I'm like, this is great. Then it's fantastic. So that's why it's amazing to work with auteurs, because you're given that framework.
Xavier, do you think the new technology gives you the opportunity to be more creative?
Absolutely. But I would have to speak for other directors saying that, because I'm a bit more of a traditionalist. I still shoot on film. Film is hugely important to me. I've shot my first film digitally. We didn't have the means to afford film. And as soon as we were done, I thought we should have been more creative and found the money to still shoot film. But, what's done is done. And then afterwards, I've always shot film, and I've explored different format from 35 to 65 to IMAX, and it's been, sorry, the reason why I'm so enamored with this art form is basically photography. And for me, film, 35, instills this amount of life and pulsation that's so humane and makes me so emotional. I'm a romantic. I'm not saying that film is the only answer. I know that there are all kinds of ways to shoot films. When I see a period piece that's meant to happen in the 1920s, and I recognize the red epic, it's for me a little less immersive than what I'd like to feel. But there are great cinematographers out there. But from a personal standpoint, what technology has allowed me to do is, of course, have not be limited when you shoot film and you have to cut negatives and grade traditionally. That's hell. I've never known this, that these are not techniques or processes that I've had experience. I've always shot on film, then scanned and edited digitally, and then gone back to film for a print. And then in terms of technology, if we're talking about streaming also, then I guess the great news is a lot more people everywhere can see films. But I'd like to think that these platforms can coexist with theaters, because for me, there's nothing like the experience that we live as a society when we all come together in a place of darkness, and we've come pursuing and chasing escape all together, and then you hear someone laugh next to you is just so much more profound than laughing on your own, on your couch, on your iPhone. It exists. Yeah. I know it exists. It's possible. I do it. I have Netflix, and they've brought means to this industry, resources that allows to shoot so much more various shows and films. But for me, from a technological standpoint, I stand by, discovering things in the dark with other people. This is one of the things we have left as a people, to go and experience movies together. When are we really together in life? A group of 20, 50 people. It's rare. I'm not talking about a party. I'm talking about an artistic moment. Anyway.
I like very much this line, see the world through the different lens. You are a director for that, see the world through a different lens, and it's necessary as a director to see the world through a different lens.
Well, yes, but of course the world itself reveals itself first to me, and then I try to organize a perspective, and I see things, a movie, when I start a movie, I have seen it already like on a screen. And because of that, I write a screenplay very fast, because it's like copying. And but the choice of how I'm showing it and how I transport it into into a world of images. That's something that has become almost natural to me. There's never an effort, and never long discussions with a cinematographer. Should we use now a 85mm lens or whatever? It's obvious what you have to do, because the content always dictates what and how you are doing it. And the new type of cameras are wonderful, because you can immediately start to film without even having any lights or any other efforts. And I'm not in the culture of complaint. I hear it so often. I'm not allowed to do my film because Hollywood doesn't pay for my ideas. Of course, it doesn't pay for your ideas, nor the independents or television. But you can roll up your sleeves and start doing it. And that's a wonderful thing about the new perspectives. And there's no excuse today anymore. You just better do it right away.
Julianne, what does it mean for you, see the world through the different lens? I mean, not only as an actress, but maybe also as a human being.
Well, yeah, I'd like to address what Werner said too. I think that idea about new technology lowering barriers, that's the best thing about it, about being able to say, I'm curious too. Like I look at my iPhone, I'm like, what do I do? How do I do this? How would I shoot something? It's just interesting to know that the possibility is in front of you always. And I think whenever you start, wherever you start, just the fact that you say, like, just the same way Werner was like, well, you were saying the telephone was relatively new to you before you made your first film. So that idea that, well, you have
before
an idea.
I made the first phone call at 17.
At 17, which is crazy, right? So, but that, and Xavier's experience of being an actor, first of all, that's really damaging for a kid. That's so hard to have been a child actor and then have to transition out of it, and that's a rough place for a person to go, a young person, and then to take that. Interesting to take that and be able to make a film about that and say, like, no, this is where I want to be, rather than letting someone tell you where you're supposed to be. To take that idea and say, like, no, this is, I do have a story, I do have a point of view, so that's available to all of you as filmmakers too. But in terms of the different lens, the best thing about my job is learning about something new. I mean, I think when I was younger, I did very little research because I thought I knew everything, and now I will. The great pleasure is getting to speak to different people, learn about something, to really kind of explore a piece of material, ask questions. People will tell you everything. When you say, hey, tell me about your life or your experience, or tell me about your family or your father or this disease or whatever, they really reveal themselves to you. So
but
that
you
process.
can overdo it at the same time. You should never discuss as an actress or as an actor too much what's the background of the youth of this character, and so it's ad nauseum.
No, but I'm talking
Sometimes
about. But I'm not talking about emotional reality, because I don't discuss. What I talk about is literally like learning about like a disease or a location or so you actually have information. But the emotional stuff and the stuff like what's my backstory? No.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
No, yeah.
Xavier, what does it mean for you to see the world through a different lens?
I mean, I guess the way I interpret the slogan is to me, a lens is accessory. So are we talking about gaze and the way people look at the world? Every filmmaker and every actor, actresses, production designer, people all have their own. I don't want to twist this metaphor in a cheap way, sorry, but we all have our lenses. No, but I mean, it's personal. I mean, I see the world in a certain way, and I invite people in this circle where we're creating a film, and we all discuss how we see the world in a different way with our own differences, and then when all of this collide, you get a vision, an artistic vision. that people have participated in, and that's shaped by our origins and our views and our beliefs. I don't know how I see the world. I like to think that it changes every time I make a film. I learn new things. I meet new people, and I change. My opinions change. The way I look at life changes, and that's basically what I express through films: is how I see life, or how I see a problem at a certain moment, or a question, and how I'm trying to answer it. Yeah, that's what that would mean to me.
But you think that the cinema, the movie, has a power to change a lot of things, political one, economical one, or something like that?
Of course, there's always this line where you don't want to flatter yourself and think that what you do changes people's lives. But you receive letters, and people talk to you, and they talk to you in airports and in the street, and they tell you, I saw your film, and then I called my mom, and it had been years since we... So there is change that's brought, and hope and betterment that's brought by movies. Is it to which scale? Are we changing the world? It depends how you see it. There's entertainment at first. Also, that's the purpose of what we do. We want to tell stories, and we want to. I don't start writing a film thinking let's change the world, but then you realize that you impact people's lives personally on a level where they question themselves and they question people around them. Some movies you leave behind you. You watch a film in a theater, and it is ephemeral, and you leave it behind you. And then sometimes Tennessee Williams would say you bring something home. You bring it home with you. And then you discuss it with your mom, and you discuss it, and you call friends, and you're like, have you seen this? I'll go see it again with you. And so, yeah, I think that you can bring change to this world through film. Clearly, we live in a world that needs more concrete change than the change we can bring. Through film, we need change. In climate, we need change in our society that's far greater than the change that we bring through films. But documentaries and that tell you about the world we live in, that change the way you look at things, of course that can change you, and then you in turn can change other people's way to look at life. So yeah, we can bring change with movies.
You direct a lot of documentaries, Werner. So you see the impact of the audience.
Well, it's good that you are saying that I direct documentaries, which is a clear statement already, because I hear it, this insipid talk that has been on for decades. A documentary filmmaker should not interfere, should be just like the fly on the wall. No, we should not. We are creators. We interfere. I stylize, I repeat in documentaries, I modify facts, but to such a degree that they resemble truth more than reality. So in many of my documentaries are feature films in disguise. So doing that kind of work has to have a clear attitude, and I do not believe in the fly on the wall or in the camera that you find in the bank. In your bank building, and there's 20 of them, and they wait for 15 years until a robber finally may show up, and the robber never does. So you better speed up the events, and you organize the robber, and if the robber does a bad job, ask the robber to repeat and do it better.
And once there's a presence of a camera in a room, it's no longer reality. It's different. It's slightly, when you've turned a lens on something, you're saying, let's look at this. And when you're looking at it that way, that deliberately, that's not real life. It's cinema in one form or another, and that's really important.
Including documentaries.
Including documentaries.
It's always a transported,
but it's not
reality.
Yeah, which is
fascinating. And you have to make it clear to those who are doing a documentary with you, including a man who is on death row and being executed in 8 days. So it's the same attitude. Make your position clear and guide what you are doing within these less than 60 minutes that you have in your entire life to meet this person.
Right. That's why I personally hate B-roll. When they come on a set and you're working on a movie and you're trying to do something and then people come in and they want to shoot B-roll while you're working, I'm like, please don't do this, because that's like another element.
Is it something like coverage or
No,
what is
no.
B-roll?
B-roll.
No, because
B-roll.
sometimes you try to church something, or
Well, it's like
you are
if the,
work in
the, the,
progress.
pr-
What is
the
B-roll?
PR comes in, publicity comes in while you're shooting a movie, and they're like, we want to get behind the scenes, we want to get
Behind the
B-roll.
scenes.
Behind the scenes.
Okay,
And
yeah.
that makes me bananas because it's another film. That's another film. And I'm trying to work on this film, and so it's splitting my attention.
And act in both
And
at
you
the same
can't,
time.
yeah, I can't do it. I can't do it.
Publicity
yeah.
people should be banished from sets anyway. Send them on a nice vacation to an island somewhere in the Pacific, very far, and let them have a good time.
Julianne, you believe in the power of cinema, and sometimes you accept to do characters for that. I mean, for the power of the cinema. I mean, the impact of the impact the cinema of the audience.
No. I
Never?
never do something because I feel like there has to be something in it intrinsically for me as a person, as you know, to connect to. There has to be something that I'm relating to, that a story I want to tell, that I want to be in. If it's just going to be like, this is good for you, well, then that's just like medicine or something. And I don't think, as Xavier was saying, nobody goes to the movies, you know, for that reason. We go to have a human experience and an emotional experience and some kind of connection to it. So if it's just fact, I guess you could just watch the news, you know, or something, or learn about something that way. But I'm doing something because of the point of view of the director, because of the material, because of my personal connection to it. And if that's not there, honestly, it wouldn't be effective anyway.
But for me, if I may add, it's a strange thing is that I'm at best in acting what I'm not. Actually, I'm good as a real villain. And in real life, I'm not that kind of guy.
You're not villainous.
No, I'm a fluffy husband. That's what my wife tells me once in a while. And I can do things that I'm not with greatest ease. And there are sometimes you find actors, and I've met actors who would argue with the production people about something that was not correct with a per diem. And then they are called step in front of the camera, and he steps in front of the camera and is a demon. I'm not speaking of Kinski now. He would need more preparation in throwing manic, crazy tantrums for hours until he would warm up enough for the scene now.
Really? How
But
was
that's-
Kinski? I want to
That
know.
was Kinski, but for example, Mick Jagger would argue about per diem, and then I said, Mick, just step in front of the camera, and in 5 steps, he changes into a demon. How he does it or how he did it, I don't know. But it's something very special.
I think every actor is different, you know, and one of the things that I admire so much with directors are the ones that acknowledge that. The same way that as an actor, I know that every director's technique, everything that they're doing is going to be different. So I have to try to figure out what is their process. I see directors do that with large casts of actors and know that, well, this person needs this and this person needs that. But it's the very collectiveness of filmmaking that's very exciting. We never know what it's going to be because there are a different set of personalities every single time. So that in and of itself, I think, is challenging and interesting on a human relationship level.
Could you play 2 different parts in one movie?
I've done it on TV.
Okay. Yes.
But yes, I could. Yes, I could.
I really
Yeah.
admire that kind of quality that you see hardly ever.
Yeah. But no, I hope so. You know, I mean, that's the trick, right? I think that's the trick for everybody. It's like, how do you bring the most personal part of yourself, because you have to something, and then also bring this other part, this professional part. It's that duality that is exciting, you know, that you're always challenged. Even technically, I always say about actors, you have to know where the lens is, you have to know where the frame is, you have to see where the boom is, you have to see this stuff, and you have to give a performance because you're part of this collective.
And there's a part of your mind that always, as an actor, that stays in the room where you are. you want to believe that you can be completely someone else. But if you're completely someone else, then you grow oblivious to the technicalities around you, such as a camera, you don't want to be conscious. But when you were talking about playing two characters at the same time, or throwing a fit and then showing up in front of the camera and being completely someone else, I think there are some actors who feel that it is a necessity for them to go completely in immersion in becoming someone else. But the truth is, the actors I've had the most, I don't want to say fun, but that I feel most fulfilled working with were actors who could abandon themselves but always be in control and be creative. And that requires not entirely, losing yourself in a methodic approach, but also staying in the room and being conscious of, yes, a camera and maybe a conflict that goes, when you cut about, I don't know, Perdium or whatever story that was.
But tell me, when Xavier Dolan, the director, directs Xavier Dolan, the actor, it's a case this year in the movie competition, Matthias and Maxime. I mean, with leader, is it the Xavier the director or Xavier the actor?
I have, I've acted in my first two films, and they're painful to watch because I know that my head was somewhere else and that I would always give priority to other actors and then shoot myself last when there were 15 minutes left. But then I've worked with a lot of very talented actors ever since, and I've watched them, and I've learned a lot from them. And I've tried to incorporate these notions into my own work. But the thing is also, I can watch myself after working, and I can hate myself, or I can love what I did. I don't have a problem watching myself and trying to be precise about, oh, that's too me, or there's my tick, or there's something that I did here that just withdraws me from the story and that tells me this is Xavier and this should be a character. I don't have trouble finding these things, and I surround myself with people who are extremely critical of my work, that can say, that was bad. I turn around and there's the script supervisor, and I look at her and she's like, and I'm like, oh, we'll do it again right now.
We should be. I love that you said that, but we all have to have the ability to be critical of what we're doing, to be clear about it.
But I've worked with great actresses and actors who could never watch themselves, and they were also actors that whose work I worship, and who can go places where I know that maybe right now in my life I cannot go. So I'm admirative of their work, but then at the same time, the work of precision that we were able to do, I think, on Matthias et Maxime, with my cinematographer or the first assistant director, or Nancy Graham, the producer, she's there and she's standing by the monitor and she's looking at me and she's like, mm-hmm. Or I get honesty from them. And so I don't have to split my mind and wonder, oh, I'm a director now and I'm an actor. I don't have time for games. We're shooting and we're on a roll, and we can't go over time because it's so expensive, and we've reinvested all of our salary in the film, and we can't go overtime, and we're shooting film, but I'm surrounded by people who can give me, I think, truth. And I don't have a hard time hating myself that I don't. So we do it again until it's right.
Is something you like to do? I mean, working with the actors, Werner?
Well, it's different with each and everyone. Sometimes on the same set, in the same scene, I would speak probably in a different language with you and with you. It depends on how I bring you together and how to create context, because casting, the real casting means creating context and creating chemistry. And how do I do that? Sometimes you have somebody who is counterproductive and disruptive and egomaniac. How do you guide the person into the right mood and into acceptance? So it really, there's no specific school of behavior. I have no clue what, for example, this actor studio means, for example, a certain school. And very often people who come from these schools are almost incapacitated from being real actors. So it's a very lively procedure and a very intense kind of work. And of course, I try to incorporate the world that is around them as well. The landscape is yet another character or actor in the scene. For example, the jungle as a fever dream that surrounds you all. So there's yet another actor that you do not notice when you are having dialogue. So it's a wonderful profession and has no real guidelines for anyone.
Same thing for you as an actress, Julianne. There's no school. I mean, when you work with a director.
I think I like that you said no real guidelines.
Yeah.
I think that's a difficult thing to explain to people, that everybody finds what works for them, and there is no right, and there's no wrong. And I really like what you said about being self-critical, only because I was just speaking to a bunch of students who were about to graduate from college. They were all performers, and everything has changed so much since I started out. Now everyone records themselves to send in an audition. You know, they do it on their iPad and they send it in. And I said, listen, I know that people get very cringy about their work and they say, oh, I'm terrible. I said, don't do that. I said, you need to be able to look at it, and to look at it critically and carefully. And if it's bad, do it again. Or find someone else who can look at it with you, who you know is on your side, who's going to help you with that process. But I mean, for me, I like to have, like when I'm working, I like to not just have an open relationship with the director, but also have playback, because sometimes there are things I don't understand in terms of language. Like I need to see their point of view in the frame and move it, and I can look at it and go like, oh my God, my head was this way, it should be that way. And I can see it. Now that I like to see, but once the movie is done, I don't have any interest in seeing it because I can't fix it anymore. I can't do anything. I can appreciate the film, but I don't want to watch it again. I'll see it, and then I'm done, you know. But yeah, and just in terms of the process, you don't know. So there is no right way or wrong way for a director or for an actor, for anybody. It's just you have to give everybody the space to do it the way they do it. And sometimes you might be in a situation with an actor or a director and you're like, wow, that is so incongruous with my process. I don't know that I would want to repeat it, right? But then you find other people and you're like, man, I would work with them all day long. It's just it's easy and we understand each other.
So you don't have any process too? I mean, Xavier, when you're doing
too. You work with human beings of whom you expect a lot of emotions, and behaviorally you cannot expect to get their truth if you don't, you know, come to them with an open mind and see what works for them. I've worked with actors with whom I had to have constant privacy. We would go on the balcony and smoke a cigarette and talk about a scene. Others who really didn't want to talk about it and just go, and then who would talk about it with me after the first take. Actors who would watch themselves, actors who would never want to watch themselves, actors who were very creative. And the thing that I love to do a lot is, my problem is, as an actor myself, the most efficient way and organic, that's a terrible word in cinema, it's a terrible word, but organic way that I can give directions to an actor is often by calling things out during a take, things that I see on my, you would hate that, right? Is that what you're, no, but it's
challenging.
I
But
know.
then
and
again, sometimes it works. Yeah.
Well, and I've worked with actors who said, okay, let's do one take with that, and then let's do another one without these notes. But it's a thing where the thing is, we are in two different realities. Yeah. We are in what we are on set, and we are in what I see on the little screen. And it's big like this, and the quality is not good because it's film, and we don't have the right adapter, so it's a terrible SD video monitor. And you look at it, but you're like, I can already see that here, you know, it's stupid to say, oh, you're going to hate me now. But a look out the window, or sometimes you feel someone is about to...
But that's why I said that's why I'll go look at it, because I'm like, oh, I should have looked out the window.
But look out the window, or, you know, sometimes say something, and you feel like, in the moment, it's just a second too early, and you need to say to someone, don't, not now. And people can be extremely annoyed by that, and some others can ask for it again, or so there are various ways of working. The most important thing for me for an actor and as an actor and director is for actors to be creative. Ideas. If you don't have ideas, if you don't know how to be, I don't want anyone to be original, but you got to be someone. You got to think of these details that make someone whole. And if you don't, and if I have to do it for you and you resist, then we are somewhere incomplete in this process. Yeah. And when I worked with Kathy Bates on The Death and Life of John F. Donovan, we had a long conversation before, and she said, are you going to be, how did she phrase it? She said, are you going to be someone who just wants me to play your ideas? Are you going to give me notes the whole way through? And I was like, yes, maybe. What am I going to tell her? And I was really impressed by her. And I know how great she is. And I said, you know, what matters are not my ideas, is that there are ideas and that we feel there's a human being who's, and of course, you know, she was so extraordinary. There was always something going on here, always a small detail, an attention to, you know, a look out the window or a hesitation or a way to make something so personal that it would be immediately human, and then there are other actors who just stare and do this. And that's not enough.
But,
a smirk is not enough.
What I think is very helpful when you work in celluloid, you don't have really this kind of video village, all this play out, everybody is staring at screens, and it's counterproductive. You have to, as a director, you have to know this was really good and it's not going to get any better.
And we have
and you have to have it
to
in
feel
you.
It. And we have monitors. I don't want to disappoint you. We have monitors, but they're very small, and you have to use your imagination and just feel. Do we have it? Is that? And also, sometimes you develop film, and you're like, really? This is not what we wanted this to look like. Film is chemistry. If you blow up,
it comes at you in a different way all of a sudden 2 days later.
If you blow up 1 pixel of celluloid film, you'll see cells moving. Yeah. And if you blow up, you know, a pixel of a digital camera, you'll see a square, because it's a square. So that's also what happens when you shoot these ways. You have to trust people's the life that they bring.
An interesting thing that happens to me sometimes. I do a scene and it's really, I think this is really it, and yet I have the feeling maybe there's some more, and I can't really tell. For example, Nicolas Cage, we had a perfect scene, and I said to him, Nicolas, I do believe there is more in it. I would like to do one more take, but this time you will turn the pig loose. And he says, understood. and he turns the pig loose in a way that nobody has ever expected.
And that's something beautiful, the talent actor.
That's a beautiful thing to work with the real great ones. And you give them space enough to become the architect of their own scene or their own behavior.
And I feel real actors will always want to give you more. And if they learn to work with you and they see your face when you're happy and when you're satisfied and fulfilled and you feel that you have your scene. And then when you don't reproduce that face or that expression, they're like, what's wrong? And I feel that when you ask for more and when you feel that there's something missing are the moments where everyone has this signal. Everyone is signaled that they have to do something more.
My signal would be I turn purple, and I feel like I have to suppress my scream or my laughter of joy, and I turn away and take a little handkerchief and gag myself and bend down silently. Then they know this was good.
That's it.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to be a fly on the wall, but just for that.
Todd Haynes used to giggle when he liked something that I did.
You can't giggle because it.
No,
it
I would say I said you're ruining my take.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I do it too. You know what? When we cut and I'm so happy, I scream with joy and I start jumping everywhere and I squeeze someone's arm very violently. And yeah, anyway, we all have our. You have the handkerchief, I have the arm, but anyway.
We have a few more minutes, so if you have any questions for Xavier, for Julianne or Werner, yes, maybe we can give you a mic. And no